Hi, this is Curt, and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
Let's go to DC because this one, at least I understand. This is more common, and in truth, I got to tell you, I have a lot of blame around. So here we're in Washington DC, two firefighters, and the facts are kind of important here. But basically, two firefighters are facing discipline because they allegedly delayed the response to a chest pain call because they had already placed an order for food, and they fast food, Chick-fil-A or whatever, and they pulled over for a minute or so to pick it up. They said they were famished, they were tired, right? But meanwhile, they'd been dispatched to this 57-year-old female with chest pain, and this was an ALS ambulance. So if you watch the news footage, you see, it's funny, you almost got to pause it to see what they say, but they claim, look, there was no delay of care in the report from the fire department, which really wasn't true. As the news report doesn't appear to be true, the news report, there were two units dispatched. The ambulance alleges, I believe, if I understand it correctly, that they were kind of a supplemental response, except they were closer than all other units. So they were dispatched as the closest available unit. I think the important part of this, look, obviously, if they delayed care and there was an injury to the person, we don't know from the delayed care, there's probably going to be a lawsuit. On the other hand, let's talk about better municipal practices, because this is where I see this going. You know, you cannot run your EMTs, paramedics ragged. Fire is a little difficult because there's, you know, you're probably not going to say, okay, your fire truck's out of service, go to another station. But another ambulance, you got to give them, and I don't mean under law, but yet practically you have to give them time to eat. You can't starve them because it does impair their judgment. They're tired. They're not going to think as well, act as well. So I think the municipality has a really good incentive in order to help prevent negligent care, treatment, et cetera, to make sure that your personnel are fed and rested and given at least some break. And yes, fine, FLSA, maybe there's not a requirement when you're on the ambulance to get a half an hour meal, right? But here you really need to allow them to have a meal. And I think that's a bigger issue here because they did make a bad decision, right?
I agree. And this incident happens all across the country, not necessarily being dispatched, but units sort of self-policing the issue by not calling available and not becoming available and keeping themselves out of service, right, so that they can get a meal, they can get a break. They can use the facilities or whatever euphemism you want to say, but there's some things that people have to do. And often I think administrators are just either oblivious or they're under such budget pressure that they cannot provide enough people to allow people to have lunch, have a break, just take a breather, and even use the bathroom. It's just, right. And you're right, it is, at some extent, it is on the leadership. On some extent, it's on the political entities that don't provide enough resources to right. allow people to even take a break.
Right. And we're not excusing, right? We're not excusing the medics for, accepting the dispatch, not say, had they just said to the dispatch, we need to get food. Is there anybody else? Something, as opposed to saying, we're in service, we're going. Mm-hmm. You can't do that, right? So there's sympathy on either end, on all ends. Ultimately, though, once you're dispatched, you either own up and say, listen, we just can't go. We can't handle the call right now. Mm-hmm. Then it would be a different issue. Be honest about it. And, I was freeze framing on the little bit they showed of the incident report. And I was trying to read it, and there's a question, not in my mind, there's a question of whether the medics were truthful or not. Obviously never lie, just own up to it and say, we're starving. We couldn't go on any longer. It probably would have been better, who knows, but at least be honest, right? Even if the truth doesn't help, be honest. That it never helps when you put yourself in a situation where you're trying to explain the truth or what's not the truth. But but agree. I think you and I take the same view that this is a bigger issue than just this one ambulance. You've got to
I
give
know
people time.
you've worked on rescues, on
20 years,
ambulances.
20 years.
You know,
Yep.
you've got extensive experience. I have worked on them. I haven't done a lot on them. I've been on busy engine companies, but I haven't been fully assigned to a rescue. I've done a week here, a week there, and you know, that was enough for me. God
Look,
bless the
we
folks who
picked
want
up
to do
the
that for a
phone.
career. Okay.
Right.
But the people who've done it have a different perspective on a story like this than the people who've never done it.
Right.
And unfortunately, many times the people who haven't done it are the ones that are calling the shots, or in this case, covering this. Paul Wagner, who is a very good reporter from the DC area, and he covers a lot about the fire department, but he's never, I mean, maybe he has been, it just doesn't seem to me he has actually done this. So he doesn't truly understand what it's like. On the other hand, the medics probably don't understand what it's going to be like when a guy like Paul Wagner gets a hold of a story like this.
Right. Right. And look, I agree. I mean, these weren't tricks. What we did is we would not clear the hospital. We would pick up the phone, call them saying, we need to get lunch.
This is our 18th run in the last 12 hours. We need a break.
Right. And we leave ourselves out of service at the hospital. Right. And then we go and then we call ourselves back in service or whatever, but you don't mark yourself back in service. Now, however, there was reference, and I don't know what they do in DC, but there was reference to that they were tracking their location. They could see where they went and how long they were there. So obviously, maybe they automatically take them out of service, right? Or put them back in service from the hospital. Now, I will tell you, in New York, in my area, it's become a real big issue because as soon as our ambulance and any other ambulance leaves the hospital, which is in the city of Syracuse, right? And we're 20 miles away for our territory. So we leave the city, we can be dispatched, our ambulance, all ambulances here in Onondaga County, New York, can be dispatched anywhere in the county. And it's happening all the time. Hey, you're clearing the hospital, go here.
Yeah.
And yet these are people who probably do need to get lunch or dinner or rest, and they're being sent to a call that's not even in their own territory, that's fully a different municipality. And, you know, dispatch is just sending them because they cleared the hospital. So whatever it is, this is a good time, I'm saying to DC, to look at your policy, look at your procedure, and let's get this right. And as to all providers, don't lie, right? We get it, but don't lie.
And take care of your people.
Take care of your people.
Take care of your people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.